Sure. And this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Friday, October 7th, 2022. Robert Harding and Justin Ritzel are joining me. We're going to do our NFL pick four and talk a little bit more about the league. So let's get right to it. So last week, quick recap. Justin was our leader, 2-1-1. We had to push the Bills game, so that's a tie. And then Robert and I each won 2-1. Another fun week betting the NFL. Yay. Anyway, season standings. We are all 7-8-1. So there is a three-way deadlock here. So, hey, it's anybody's game. All right, let's get right to it. Our first game, the Los Angeles Chargers -3 at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, I mean, again, obviously Deshaun Watson isn't going to be playing anytime soon. Jacoby Brissett's kind of running the show. The Browns are just like, they're not good. They're not horrible. They're mediocre. Chargers, on the other hand, have had some bad losses. They lost to the Jags, although they did get back on track last week. I think the key, obviously, is if Herbert is healthy. If he's healthy, then I think the Chargers look pretty good. So I like the Chargers to go in to beautiful Northeast Ohio, Ashtabula, and all those other fun places there, and Willoughby. And the Chargers are going to take care of business. They will cover the -3 at Cleveland. Go ahead, Robert.
Boy, I felt bad for Ritz with this week of games.
Yeah,
awful.
Games. Well, at least we didn't pick last night's.
Yeah, kind of the dog of all dogs.
Yeah.
My take on this is that the Chargers, that they've kind of underperformed this year. I think they obviously have the talent to be a really good team, but obviously that loss to the Jaguars at home, that was a red flag there. I think they're one of the 2-2 teams in the league. The Browns, I mean, people forget, it's easy to look at the record and say, oh, this is a mediocre team. If Nick Chubb doesn't run into the end zone and they just drain the clock, this is a 3-1 team with Jacoby Brissett. And, they've got enough talent here, I think. I do like them at home to cover here. This has been a weird NFL season. I'm just embracing the weird. I think Brissett and the Browns, with Chubb there, Brissett seems to have a good rapport with Amari Cooper. They seem to do enough on offense. The defense is solid too. The Chargers, who knows what version of the Chargers show up. That's why I'm going with the Browns.
Going with the Browns. All right, Justin.
Well, for karmic purposes, I will not pick the Browns this entire year. I don't know how many times we're going to include them in our games. Probably not that often, but I think my reasoning doesn't need to be explained. This game does worry me in the sense, as someone who is picking the Chargers, is that they just look to be that team that's going to have the season from hell. And you couple that with the fact that it's the Chargers and they have bad luck as is. This is a team that obviously I picked to do good things this year, and just so many injuries are already piling up between losing their left tackle, who's really good, to one of the Bosa brothers, Joey Bosa. He's out for some time. Keenan Allen's been out of the lineup dealing with, I think, a hamstring injury. And then, most importantly of all, Justin Herbert hasn't been 100% because he's dealing with some rib issues. So, it's just another one of those Chargers seasons that, in August, everyone has hope. And now that the season has actually started and everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, it's hard to be as excited, but I'll take them this week. Let's not forget the Browns have lost to two teams that I think people picked as among the 5 worst teams in football, the Falcons and the Jets. So not exactly impressed with their resume. I'll take the Chargers.
All right. Our next game, Dallas at the Rams. Rams are 4.5-point favorites. Rams are coming off a really bad loss there on was it Sunday Night Football, I believe. Yeah, I lost the Sunday night game.
Monday night.
That's what I thought. All right. So they lost a stinker to the Niners, division game on the road. short week. And the Cowboys, I mean, look, they're not setting the world on fire, but they're playing good football. And I think the defense is the biggest thing with the Cowboys. I'd like the Cowboys to go in and cover the 4.5. I think they may lose by a field goal or something, but I like the Cowboys to cover that 4.5. That's a big spread for them. So I'm taking Dallas to cover the point spread there. So Justin, who do you like?
I'm with you, Chris. I'm going to take the Cowboys. My distaste for the Rams is well documented. The problem with the Rams is that, yes, in terms of star power, they have plenty of it. They have quite a few blue chippers on that roster, but when you have one of those blue chippers is Matt Stafford, who is a turnover machine. Another one is Jalen Ramsey, who is viewed as one of the best corners in the NFL, but hasn't really played like it so far this year. That's worrisome. And then they just can't block. So, here comes the favorite for defensive player of the year, Micah Parsons. It's hard to have confidence in the Rams after the performance their offensive line and Stafford had on Monday night. I think the Cowboys can do exactly what the 49ers did, and that's why I'm going to take them.
Robert?
Make it a complete sweep. I'm riding the Cowboys in this one. I have not liked what I've seen from the Rams this year. And I say that having Matt Stafford as my quarterback in one of my fantasy leagues. I've seen that bum's stats up close. Not good. And, the Cowboys, with Rush at quarterback and, that defense playing well, it seems like they figured out a recipe. How do you win when your starting quarterback's hurt? You do enough on offense and hope your defense, can get some stops. And you just outscore the other guys, and that's what the Cowboys have been doing. And I think they'll keep it up. I think they'll continue it. I just think they're a better team than the Rams so far this year, honestly. And I think they'll at least cover, if not win this one.
Our next game, Cincinnati Bengals, 3-point underdogs on the road at Baltimore. The Ravens, another, as Robert would say, against his Bills last week, coughing up a 17-0 lead and losing to the Bills by 3. The Bengals, they put a whooping on my Miami Dolphins, and, it was not pretty. Unless you're a Bengals fan, then it was very pretty. So I think the Bengals have got their mojo back a little bit, and I think the rest, as Robert likes to know, cliches, I love to throw them out. They're well rested, having played last Thursday night. It's a division game. There's another cliche. And I think that means something. So I think Baltimore, I think there's a little dissension in that locker room. I think we saw some of it at the end of the game because Harbaugh didn't call for the field goal to tie it up at the end there. And they went for the touchdown and it ended in disaster or whatever, fourth down. So I am taking the Bengals to cover the -3. Go ahead, Robert.
I can't give the Bengals too much credit. They won a Thursday night game. And, obviously if the Dolphins cared, one iota about Tua, who knows how that game turns out. But I like the Ravens. Look, this is a divisional matchup, Chris. Got to invoke that here. And the records go out the window when you're talking divisional football. And, I think the Ravens are just a tough matchup for the Bengals. I think the Bengals defense is okay, but I think they can have trouble against Lamar. And I think that's really the difference here. The Ravens defense, they've obviously had an up and down season, but, they showed against the Bills that, at least in the first half, that they certainly have it in them to play, tough defensive football again. So, I like them to cover in this one. I'm not buying the Bengals yet. Again, Thursday night football, don't read too much into that. They're going to be pretty bad games this year, probably. So, I think the Ravens are the better team and they'll get the win.
Justin?
Yeah, not that I was thinking the Bengals were going back to the Super Bowl, but, they still haven't looked right to me. I think that Thursday night game was closer than the final score would tell you. And that's with Miami losing their quarterback basically at halftime. So I just haven't been impressed with them. I know the Ravens have, they're 2-2, I think. They've coughed up a couple games that they were comfortably ahead. And I don't think that there's dissension in the locker room. I think the Ravens are approaching things the same way they have, the past 3 years with Lamar Jackson. So Chris, maybe you're just trying to manufacture some drama. I don't know, but
I'm not trying to do that.
Listen, Lamar Jackson's played pretty fantastic, I think, so far this year. From a Bills perspective, you could look at last week and say, well, look at the conditions. Josh Allen wasn't going up and down the field because how could he? It was pouring rain. Well, hey, Lamar Jackson had to deal with those conditions too. And so I'm not going to knock him too much for maybe statistically being a little off last week. And I think the Ravens are one of those teams because of their secondary. They match up well with the Bengals. They have the corners that they can put on those Bengals receivers and challenge them and rush the passer as well. So I like the Ravens. They were my pick to win this division before the season, and I'm not backing off that after a month.
Oh boy, that's going to be fun. All right, our last game, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe this is the Sunday night. Is this the Sunday night game or the Monday night game?
Monday night.
Monday night. Okay. And the Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites, a very healthy 7.5. Boy, the Raiders, this team just tried to figure it out. They just can't get it together. Everybody thought with Devontae Adams joining, that this offense was going to take off, and, McDaniels, that's right, because McDaniels our coach, but McDaniels was going to make a big difference. And so far, not so good. The Chiefs, they've had some ups and downs. They had that stinker of a loss to Indy, but division game. It's a big spread, but it's prime time. Mahomes always plays great in prime time, the majority of the time. And I like the Chiefs to cover the 7.5. Go ahead, Robert.
The Raiders' only win this season came against the Broncos. That's all you need to know. The Raiders, I think, they're a disappointment, I think, after being a playoff team last year. McDaniels comes in and they think that they have this great coach. They need Bisaccia back. They need to get that guy back from the Packers. They played some real football when that guy was coaching them, and they bring in this this softy McDaniels, and they forget how to play. I look, the Chiefs showed what they can do against the Bucs. I think the Chiefs, for all this talk about, they're going to miss Tyreek Hill, you forget that they still have Kelsey. You forget that they have Mahomes. They still have like this great group of kind of role players that any given game, Mahomes can turn into a go-to guy. I like the Chiefs to cover in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a blowout, quite honestly. That the way that the Raiders have been playing, and look, the Raiders defense gave up 23 points to the Broncos, I believe. That doesn't seem like a lot until you saw last night's game and realized that the Broncos, with Cam Hackett at the helm, can't hack it on offense. So, I wouldn't. I would look away from the TV screens on Monday night, because this could be a bloodbath.
Justin?
Well, I think there was maybe reason to be skeptical about Josh McDaniels, Chris, going into this season. But I'll tell you what, I think Derek Carr is a fraud. All right. There was a lot of optimism about, his play over the last year plus, for reasons that I don't really understand. Let's not forget, a couple of years ago, Derek Carr was really made fun of because he was like Alex Smith. Like, he didn't want to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. He was a check down Charlie. He opened it up a little bit more last year, but I still see the same guy who he's an average quarterback. He does not win games. I think that Raiders offense has been a disappointment, and you can see it on like Devontae Adams' reaction after some of these throws that fall incomplete. It's just like, Derek Carr is not even giving him a chance on some of these throws. And, Devontae is obviously one of the best at getting open, making contested catches. He's good at everything. It's pretty hard to frustrate that guy. And yet here we are, like, so much talk about their college connection. Well, this is the NFL now, and Derek Carr needs to step up his play. I don't think this is going to be the week that he does it. for sure. I mean, this is a Chiefs team that's just absolutely given him nightmares and given the Raiders nightmares over the years. And I don't know how you can look at the Chiefs' performance last week and not be impressed with that. So I'm with you guys. I think this is going to be a Chiefs blowout.
Yeah, another dog primetime game. At least this one will have some points in it. I mean, a touchdown. I mean, how about that? Some guy bet like $100 that there wasn't going to be a touchdown scored in last night's game, and he won over 10 grand. I mean, congratulations to that guy.
Not bad.
And somebody actually tweeted yesterday morning that like, oh yeah, I hope you're going to enjoy tonight's 12-9 Colts win. That's even somebody actually tweeted that. I mean, I don't know if that was fake, but that is absolutely bonkers if that's true. It's like, holy
pretty good if true. Yeah.
It's amazing. So all right. So we're going to talk a little more about the NFL. And I mean, let's just go off of last night. I mean, and Robert retweeted something about this too. Thursday Night Football needs to go. It does. It's not going to go because Amazon is paying the NFL $10 billion over the next 10 years to broadcast it. So it isn't going anywhere. The NFL likes money more than it does, I guess, good games or player safety. But this is ridiculous. And again, I've seen many people say it. If you're going to have Thursday Night Football, then every team should be coming off their bye week before it. I mean, it's obvious that in today's modern NFL, it's very difficult to have a quality game when neither team can put in the full amount of preparation needed for it. Okay. And you're getting these dog games. You're getting players that are getting hurt. And I get players get hurt with full rest and everything on Sundays and everything. But I mean, come on. The NFL is the king of PR when it comes to professional sports leagues. And it's 2 weeks in a row they've had bad PR with a player getting knocked out of the game with a concussion. Okay. And prime time in front of millions of people. So, the thing is, they've got to do something, and I don't know what they can do because they can't cancel the games, and I don't know how you start doing bye weeks and week 1 or something or week 2. So there's really no good short-term solution, I guess. It's just something that the NFL needs to look at. The Players Association needs to speak up, and this is a menace. This is really, I mean, that game. I mean, it was what was it? Some people were saying it was so ugly that I still had to watch it because it was like ugly in a good way. I mean, could somebody score a touchdown? I mean, it was just, and the mistakes, the interceptions by Ryan and Wilson, especially that last one by Wilson. Boy, I was unhappy with that one. You know what I mean, right, guys? So anyways, Thursday Night Football, it's got to go. Look, you want to have it for the opening game? Great. You want to have it on Thanksgiving? Great. I get that. That's fine. Those are traditions. Keep doing them. But these teams should be coming off bye weeks before they play Thursday night games, because playing really only on 3 days rest and without the full amount of practice time and classroom time to prepare, this is what you get. Once in a while, you get a great game on a Thursday. I get it happens. But you know something? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And in this situation, that's the case. All right. End of rant. Go ahead, Robert. Your thoughts about the NFL this week.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Thursday Night Football as well, and I think the big issue here really is that you obviously there's a dose of realism here. The NFL has a deal with Amazon. Thursday Night Football isn't going to go away. I do think that they need to make for some adjustments. And obviously that's tougher, during this, first stretch of the season when they don't have any scheduled buys. Now, maybe that changes in the future. I don't know. But I mean, it's clear that, it's very difficult for teams to put out their best product on a Thursday night after playing on a Sunday. You look at, the players that maybe banged up on Sunday, that if the game was the following Sunday, they maybe play. But when it's Thursday, they're not healthy enough. They haven't had enough time to rest and recover and get back to, as close to 100% as possible. And so they don't play. We've seen that a lot. And then, of course, Chris, you mentioned the concussions. Obviously, those are, never good. Is that a product just of football, or is it a combination of Thursday nights? The short time window. I think in Tua's case, that was what made that situation from Sunday to Thursday worse, is that this guy got knocked out twice in a 5-day period. Just insane. Like, that's not how, you should be handling head injuries. So, I think the NFL needs to take a hard look at this. We know, again, realism here. We know that they're not going to get rid of Thursday night football. Should they? Absolutely. But okay, if you're going to keep it, let's figure out a way to make this safe, for the players and to improve the product, a little bit here. If you're going to put this much stock into Thursday nights, give us some better teams. It seems funny to me that the NFL thinks Thursday night football is so important, and yet we get, this collection of mediocre games over the course of the season. Again, there's some good ones, but for the most part, dog games on Thursday. And I think it's a product of a lot of these things we've talked about. So, I think that they need to take a hard look at this and figure out, okay, how can we, make this safer for the players, a better product for the fans? Because last night, that was an all-timer. That was a disaster.
By the way, the first NFL game I ever saw in person, September 4th, 1983. You can look it up on Pro Football Reference, okay? September 4th, 1983, Miami at Buffalo. Week 1, Miami won the game 12-0. 4 Uwe von Schamann field goals in that game. David Woodley was the starting quarterback for the Dolphins that game. Marino didn't play for another few weeks and didn't start until the rematch, but it was a 12-0 game. That was a dog game. So, yeah. Justin, go ahead. Your thoughts about the NFL.
Chris, was the forward pass invented yet when you started watching football?
in that game, there were not many great forward pass. I think Joe Ferguson was still the starting quarter. Yeah, Joe Ferguson was the quarterback for the Bills. David Woodley for the Dolphins. Not an all-time classic matchup. Although I will say this, Joe Ferguson was a good quarterback back in the day. He wasn't great, but he was a solid NFL starter for almost 10 years. And I think he's kind of forgotten in Bills history because he was overshadowed by the OJ years and how bad some of those teams were. But Joe Ferguson was a decent quarterback back in the day. But go ahead.
Well, I think before I get to my point, I think the simple solution for not fixing Thursday night football, but improving the product and helping out safety concerns is just add a second bye. I don't think that this has to be that difficult. I mean, like Chris suggested, give them a bye week before they play Thursday night, and then allow the teams to have their second bye as well. Like that way it mitigates, the teams that have to play on Thursday night in week 2, week 3, week 4, where obviously they don't necessarily want to have their bye so early in the season when there's only one. Well, okay. Well, hey, guess what? If you have to play in one of those games, well, you get another bye in November or December, whatever. Like there's ways to make it reasonable, even if, in and of itself, Thursday night football is kind of a ridiculous concept. So it's not going anywhere. As you guys said, Bezos he's not going up to Roger Goodell and asking for a refund as much as he should after the couple dog games we've had to watch. He should be asking for a refund on Kirk Herbstreit's contract, because that guy, I'd rather listen to a drywall than listen to that guy. But I'm going to stick with last night's game as far as my point, because, I think Russell Wilson is getting dragged a little bit since last night's game, and deservedly so. Yeah. He has been terrible. Mm-hmm. And I think, myself included, there were a lot of people that figured he'd go to Denver. He was getting out of a bad situation in Seattle where he wasn't happy with the offense and wasn't happy with the coaching staff, even though he basically handpicked his offensive coordinator last year. And here he's going into Denver, where he's going to have a head coach who comes from, if nothing else, comes from a system that we know works, that's helped out great quarterbacks in the past, Rodgers. And, if you want to go back even farther, with the Shanahan tree and all that, John Elway, it works. It helps make life easier on the quarterback. So I think there was a natural fit there, including the weapons that Denver was perceived as having: a good receiving core, a couple good running backs, decent offensive line. You're like, oh yeah, this should work out. And it hasn't. Obviously, they can't score a touchdown to save their life. But at what point do we just hold Russell Wilson accountable and say maybe he's not the quarterback that everyone has put him up on this podium to be? We're going on really 2 years of him just playing bad. He was lights out the first half of 2020 and absolutely sucked the second half of that season. Last year was a total wash between his own poor play and his injury. And we've seen how the first month plus of this season has gone, which has been terrible. I don't know like what else the guy needs to succeed. And, you know, he was all about like the reason he was frustrated in Seattle is because, and I don't think people talk about the selfishness of this enough, but he wanted to be the hero. You know, there's that story, you know, that's kind of famous now where he went to that Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers and saw how those two organizations did everything in their power to surround their quarterbacks with talent and listen to every demand. And he was like, well, I want that, you know, and he's gotten it. And what have the results been? They've been terrible. You know, Russell Wilson is talked about as this no doubt Hall of Famer, which I have my issues with that. He's going to go down as having the worst contract in NFL history if he doesn't start picking up his play. And, you know, the way he's throwing up some of these hero balls like he did last night, I mean, his 2 interceptions were terrible. Yeah. Like that's stuff I expect high school quarterbacks to do, not Pro Bowl quarterbacks who are expected to, you know, contend for MVPs. So he stinks. And I'm enjoying every second of it. I can't stand Russell Wilson. I think he's a poser, just like Kyle Brandt called him on Good Morning Football today. Poser Russell Wilson, Mr. Limited, whatever you want to call him. He fits all those descriptions right now. He better pick it up because the booing is only going to get louder from here.
Yeah, you know, Justin, I just want to go back to what you started off with, that they should have 2 bye weeks. And I think we've talked about this before, but, you know, back in the early to mid 90s, they actually did have 2 bye weeks in the NFL. I believe it was the 1993 season. And the teams didn't like it. I guess some of them didn't like it because momentum, and some of them, you know, I guess, you know, it was one of those things where there weren't as many good games on TV, or, you know, but of course, a lot of things have changed in the NFL since 1993. It's been almost 30 years. I mean, first of all, there's 4 extra teams now. So you've got, you know, 2 extra games a week now. You're getting 16, not 14 games. So we always thought that realistically, instead of adding a 17th game, they should have just done 2 bye weeks to get an 18-week schedule. And they still could do that. They could still get rid of the 17th game. We know they won't, but they still could do an extra bye week and give us, you know, more football, because you would still have a decent number of games. You know, you could stagger the byes where maybe there's only 2 teams getting a bye. That's it. Or maybe 4 teams getting a bye. So you're only losing a game or 2 each week, and you can stagger these things because God knows they got computers doing the scheduling now. So you could have good matchups on Thursday Night Football. You could have these teams having bye weeks and enough rest before playing on Thursday Night Football. You know,
well, and there's nothing in the calendar that says like, oh, we have to avoid the middle of February. Like, what the hell's going on?
They want the middle of February. The thing is, the NFL dreams about having the Super Bowl on President's Day weekend, because that way the vast majority of people who don't have to work that Monday morning could even have more fun on Sunday. I saw some kid propose they should have the Super Bowl on Saturday, which is a great idea. I mean, realistically, that Saturday would be you could have a Saturday night. You know, that would be the best. I understand football is a Sunday game, but I mean, we have Saturday playoff games, okay, for the first 2 weekends, okay? So why can't you have the Super Bowl on a Saturday? And because it's Super Sunday, because the alliteration, come on. You can do it on Saturday easily and do that way. But irregardless.
The alliteration still works with Saturday, you know.
No, I know, but the SU and SU thing. So, but irregardless, they could do 2 byes, give, you know, every team have coming off a bye week before they play on Thursdays. You'd have a longer season. It'd be great for player safety. You could go back to 16 games, okay, and still have you could still have an 18-week schedule, have 16 games, and player safety would be helped. You could still stay 3 preseason games, okay? And I think realistically 3 is the right number, because I think we've talked about this too, is that we think that the quality of football at the beginning of the season has been bad because the preseason's been cut, because the idea is that all the starters played basically the entire 3rd preseason game. And that's not really the case now. They're only playing maybe most of the 2nd game, if that. And even then it's starters are not getting as much playing time as they used to in the preseason. And we all know they've cut back on practices and they've changed how much you can hit in practice. So as a result, offenses and defenses are taking longer to play up to their potential. And as a result, you're getting the first month of the season really is not that great. It's almost like a preseason in a way. So, all right, guys, anything else you want to add before we sign off? All righty, gentlemen. It's been great. Folks, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a safe weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.